All right, everyone. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and welcome to the Adobe Video Community virtual meetup. This is the second one that we've hosted now. And today we're going to be talking all things Adobe Sensei and audio and how these two things really were meant for each other, and how, if you understand sort of how Sensei works and how we're using it to really not only make the process of working with audio in Premiere and Audition better, easier, and faster, but ultimately removing a lot of the tedium that we all face, especially if you're not an audio person. You know, a lot of people, we see this in the communities all the time. Been doing video for years. They might have done a lot of design or graphic design or motion graphics. But audio is it just requires a slightly different focus, and it can often be really frustrating if that isn't your main focus on the kind of work you do. So I'm going to be joined by some of our product team members, as well as a special guest dialing in all the way from Scotland. So we're very, very lucky to have her. But before we get started, just a couple of quick shout outs to everyone joining us. We, of course, are coming to you live on Facebook, as well as the Adobe Video YouTube channel. So Cynthia, hello, how are you doing? Robin Drosis, Angie, Jerome, Maya, Thomas Benner, Sean P. Tolan, Byron, great to see you, Key, Abu, Arisha, Navid, Michael Freudenberg, Rob Schultz, great to see you all here. And over on the YouTubes, I can see we've got Sonal and Sripad. Mike Russell from the UK, how's it going, man? Great to see you. Eric Addison, John Knowles. All right, we enjoy every day. Great to see you as well. Felix Smittick. All right, such a great audience and a very international audience as always. Lovely to see you. It's going to be an exciting 35 minutes. All right, so without further ado, we're going to start by showcasing a quick video that my dear friend and colleague Durin Gleaves put together. Many of you know him on the audio side. He runs our audio business here at Adobe, and he put together this product demo, which really showcases some of the incredible uses of Adobe Sensei in audio and some other things, and how they're being applied to our digital video and audio products. So let's go ahead and roll it.
Sensei is Adobe's brand for AI and machine learning powered experiences. Sensei features in Premiere Pro and Audition unlock solutions for time-consuming, repetitive, and difficult problems that creators face every day. Let me show you a few ways that Sensei is helping to automate mundane or complicated audio problems and letting users like you focus on creativity. An exciting new feature coming to Premiere Pro this year is advanced speech-to-text transcription and automated captioning workflows. Captions for online videos improve accessibility and boost audio engagement, and Adobe Sensei brings powerful, accurate dialogue transcription right into Premiere Pro. Any sequence can be sent to Adobe Sensei Cloud for transcription with support for 12 languages. Within seconds, an accurate time-stamped transcript is returned, and you can immediately search and review the dialogue in your video or create captions. A dedicated captions track will appear in your sequence, which can easily be manipulated for timing, or further refine subtitles and captions using the familiar Essential Graphics panel to share styles or adjust font, sizing, color, and even on-screen positioning as desired. While we're talking about dialogue, it's pretty common to make sure your background music reduces in volume slightly when there's dialogue present, but it can also be pretty tedious work. Whether we're automating adjustments on a mixing console or drawing keyframes by hand, ear fatigue and mouse accuracy can skew results over time, even for the best of us. A Sensei feature available in the Essential Sound panel automates the process by automatically ducking background music when dialogue is present and then bringing it back up. The ducking feature gives you control over how sensitive the feature should be, how much we want the music reduced, and how quickly to reduce it, letting you decide if you want hyper-fast ducking for an action-packed fight sequence or a peaceful pace suitable for a meditative documentary. And because Sensei is designed to support creative decisions, you can still manipulate the results where desired for the biggest impact. While we're in the Essential Sound panel, let me share something else that can save a lot of time. Often, editors receive recordings with very different volume levels. We can certainly adjust clip gain levels one at a time, or try to set up mysterious and complicated compressor plugins. But the Essential Sound panel offers a one-click solution that can literally save hours of time. Auto Match Loudness will analyze each clip, finding its unique volume characteristics, then adjust a bespoke gain adjustment that ensures all of your clips will sound the same relative to each other. And because different types of content are generally mixed at different levels, you can quickly make a scratch mix where dialogue, music, and sound effects are better balanced. Once again, since our mission is to enable creative expression, every adjustment can be fine-tuned as desired or appropriate for your project. One more Sensei feature I'd like to share, and my personal favorite, is something we call Remix that's available in Adobe Audition. When working with music, we often have compositions that are longer or shorter than we need for our project. Sure, I could just cut the end of a song off and fade it out, but that might not really fit the cadence of my timeline, and the timing of the song could be all wrong. I could also spend hours cutting sections, rearranging them, adjusting crossfades just right, and then having to do it all over again when I need to add or remove a few seconds from my timeline. Remix analyzes any music track, then rearranges the composition to find the best places to cut and crossfade to make a new version of that song that best fits the duration of my timeline. And a few parameters let me immediately try different variations that make it extremely flexible and fun. And the results are simply amazing, creating smooth, seamless, dynamic remixes that maintain the musical flow of the artist while providing the flexibility needed for video and audio creators. Thanks for joining us today and learning more about Adobe Sensei and audio in Premiere Pro and Audition.
That was awesome. All right, so I am now joined by Product Manager Durin Gleaves and the Principal Scientist here at Adobe, Gautham Mysore. Welcome, gentlemen. Very nice to have you on the live stream today.
Thanks, Jason. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone.
Hey, so again, we wanted to, and we'll be taking, by the way, for everyone watching, we've got Adobe people in the chat who will be answering your questions. I am also monitoring the chats as well, so I may type some while others are going through them. So please ask your questions during the stream here. We are here to answer, and we are here to take those questions. So I wanted to start first, and Durin, maybe we can start with you, and then Gautham, we can kind of just pivot between us. Maybe go into a little bit about sort of what is Sensei and why particularly for audio is this so significant and so important in the kind of workflows that we're talking about and trying to showcase to our users and to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Adobe Sensei, and I want to clarify some of this misconception I've heard over the years. It's not a big computer that we have running in a single spot. It's not Skynet. It's not Deep Blue, that kind of thing. It's sort of the overarching ethos and technology behind Adobe's AI and machine learning technologies. And it's really it's not about replacing creativity. It's not about creating content for you. It's about kind of handling the repetitive and difficult or time consuming tasks that really take up a lot of our time when really we'd like to be spending that time being creative. So really, we kind of believe it unlocks creativity because it doesn't require you to do the chores that get you to the point that normally you would be able to be creative.
And, I think there's two particular areas where that's so true and so relevant and showcased in the video just now. So auto ducking being one of them, and maybe you can go into a little bit about that. But something else which you showed here, but I emphasize this all the time. I know you've heard me talk about this, but even something like adding compression to a voice, right? Which of course we refer to as clarity and essential sound. We're using Sensei for that as part of the essential sound panel, and how that is so fundamental. It's a true game changer, especially for non-audio engineers, to be able to do something like automatically duck, automatically detect levels and thresholds, all the things that, again, if you're not really an audio pro, it's a super sharp learning curve.
Yeah, right. That's why people go and get engineering degrees that take 3 or 4 years to achieve. And it requires effort, and it requires time, and it requires experience and practice. And if your job is not doing that every day, then you don't build up those chops over time. Yeah. And so that's a lot of what we try to do with the Essential Sound Panel. It's abstract those difficult concepts, so we're really boiling it down to, here's the 2 or 3 things you're probably going to try to achieve when you want to use a compressor or when you want to use an EQ or a reverb, of those kind of effects. Right. And we don't want it to be a black box, so you can still go in behind the scenes and fiddle with all those controls to your heart's extent. But really, we want to be able to let people be able to get the good results quickly and then decide if they want to go in and fiddle and
Yeah. And that's really the magic, right? Is that we give everyone, it's automated, but at the same time you have manual control. And that's what the community wants, right? That's what our users want. It's nice to have the black box thing, but we're always making little tweaks. We're always making slight changes. Sometimes it's not going to catch anything or everything. And just to have that flexibility is such a significant part of what we're doing. Now, I know a lot of people have kind of heard about Sensei, or we're aware of Sensei, if not through our own streams and launches and releases, but largely through Max and Max Sneaks. And Gautham, I thought maybe you could talk to this a little bit, and maybe just explain to everyone sort of what is it? So why do we showcase a lot of these Sensei technologies, particularly around audio? Audio's seen a lot of really awesome stage time or screen time in this last virtual Max around things like Audio Awesome. And Durin kind of alluded to this when he was talking about, we're not just trying to, yes, we're trying to make, common tasks faster, but actually we're also sort of recreating. We're actually creating something new using Sensei and using this AI. And maybe you could talk to a little bit about that and the significance of AI and machine learning and deep learning.
Yeah, sure. At a high level, deep learning has kind of changed the game over the last few years, and it's enabled us to do a lot of things that simply weren't possible before. And kind of like Durin was talking about, the goal is to allow people to be creative, spend their time on creative tasks, and not to replace that, is to do all the busy work. So they're doing creative things. And in our research lab, we think a lot about this, and we have the flexibility to think beyond the next product release, beyond the next kind of product cycle, or even current products for that matter, and think about what would make things easiest for people and allow them to do fun things. But because of sort of these new breakthroughs, we can also create new paradigms for creativity, things like sweet talk, of actually bringing pictures to life and making them talk. Things like, I'd say things like remix, right? And there's other music suggestion kinds of things that's in the works, things like music generation. It allows people to use music in ways that they simply weren't. If you're creating some kind of video and it feels kind of daunting to find the right kind of clip, well, there's other ways around it these days because of some of the Sensei breakthroughs.
I love that. And also just sort of the concept of, a lot of what you and your team are often doing is you're creating things without any express expectation that they'll even make it into product, right? And that's kind of the beauty of this ever-evolving AI world, is that you can sort of create things on the fly without the burden of reality as a constraint. I don't know how this is going to fit into this release. It doesn't really matter. It's proving the concept and really showcasing what we can do here internally to really, again, change and reinvigorate and reimagine not just tasks, but just new ways of presenting content, presenting audio content, video content, color content, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. We do, we chat with people like Durin about the product as well. But yeah, it does give us this freedom to think further. But I'd like to disambiguate here. Although it might not be thinking about the next release of a product, we are thinking very much about the use case and users. Mm-hmm. So when we have an out there idea, we really like to talk to people and make sure it's grounded in something that's useful. And so problem definition is one of the most important parts of doing research. You pick the wrong problems, it's not useful.
Right.
So, talking to people early on and make sure we nail that part. So in the future, it could be, if it works out, a lot of research doesn't work out. Right. It could potentially go into product.
I love this. And this really speaks to exactly why we're doing this, right? And this is something that I've emphasized, and Durin and I have talked and shared this at like NAB and IBC in the past, but we are, as a company, and for anyone watching and listening, yes, this is where I put on my Adobe hat, but I'm always wearing it anyway. If you've ever watched me, you know that. So it's reality. But the truth is, we are out there more than ever. We're listening more than ever. We talked about this with Evo last time, who was on in January, about the beta releases and how now within the beta you can submit feedback, which you can also do that through Adobe Voice, and you can of course send commentary through the forums. But when you actually use the feedback forms from within the betas, it gets up leveled to the engineers making those features. So it's really direct connection. And then of course, on Twitter, we have tons of Adobe folks, whether in Adobe Care. In fact, I believe we've got Caroline and Kevin in the chats right now. Many of you will already know Caroline Sears and Kevin Monahan, two superstars on the Adobe Care side. But we're out there and we are listening, and we don't always get it right away. But I love this concept of we're actually trying to solve customer issues, customer problems, and not trying to make the problem and then find the solution. And it's sometimes hard to do that, but I love that this is really fundamentally kind of what your team is sort of doing. We're trying to find new ways to just do things that will just make people's lives creating stuff better and more efficient.
Very much so.
Yeah, awesome. So now, Durin, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about Remix, because this is, again, a feature that's been in Audition for a while. I know we have a lot of people on the Premiere side who, of course, been asking for it directly in Premiere, but maybe you could talk a little bit just about, and I'm just asking you to talk about it because I just want to up-level the brilliance of this. And this was this our first?
This was the first Sensei feature among the video and audio tools.
So it's very significant in a lot of ways. So yeah, maybe just tell people a little bit more about the Remix feature.
Yeah, Remix came about actually from Gautham's group. So some researchers shared some work that was initially, I think it was called, music retargeting or temporal something really dry and academic. And we took a look at some of the prototypes, and it kind of took a while for it to be like, okay, hey, I think we've got something now that's could be ready for prime time. And then there's the process of what we call tech transfer. So the research teams tend to not do everything in the same code base and languages that our engineers are writing Audition and Premiere in. They're using tools like MATLAB and Python that are really designed for the research communities. And so we need to be able to transfer that technology or those languages and those algorithms into native code for our applications. And that certainly takes a while. And then we have to figure out, okay, what's the right design? Because, the prototype was uploading an MP3 to a website and waiting 2 minutes and then clicking download and listening to it. And that wasn't going to be appropriate. Right. And so, then we work with design, we work with some of our pre-release users, or we'll invite certain users who already are doing work, in this space, or who have come to us and said, I need something to make this a little better. And in the case of Remix, I mean, it was literally going into studios in LA and other areas where people were spending 6 hours cutting up a song to make it fit, do exactly what Remix does. Right. And they're certainly concerned that this is going to impact their business because it's going to be harder to justify billing 6 hours to do what Remix can do in 30 seconds.
Right.
But it's just exciting. It's a lot of back and forth, and then it's once it's in the application, once it's out in the public, it's then iterating on the feedback that we get. How can we improve things even further? What did we miss, or what do people who are now using it, and those things kind of build on each other. It's not that we could come out with it 100% right away, because you can't really start to envision how it's going to affect your workflow until you are using it in the day-to-day workflows.
Right. And I love this too, because, in the last year, we've now introduced stock audio with Adobe Stock. And, one of the common questions I often get on my weekly streams when I get a chance to show Remix is, okay, well, how does it do with, music that doesn't have a pulse? Or how does it do with, pick your style, pick your genre? And my answer always is, try it.
Try it.
It can amaze you. And if you're not comfortable editing yourself, and spending 6 hours, 6 days, whatever, based on your own limitation, just try it. The results are shocking. And just some of the things that we've improved upon in Remix over the last, couple of versions, just having, again, that little tail at the end. So if you're fading to black, you just have a nice little fade out. I mean, it's shocking. And I always relate it to like content aware fill in Photoshop and now in After Effects. There are certain images and videos where you'll do content aware fill and it just completely blows your mind, right? I mean, It is Adobe magic, and it doesn't always completely blow your mind. There's that honesty we're talking about here. Not always.
Well, sometimes it blows your mind in a
different way. Yeah. Sometimes you want to throw the laptop. That's fine. Everybody's been there. But It is amazing, and it is the kind of thing where, and it's effortless. I mean, I guess that's the other thing. It's effortless to try it, to audition it, to see what it'll do. And one of the features that I love there, this is kind of diving into the weeds a little, but we do have that ability once it does the remix to actually take those edit points, which begin as just virtual squiggle lines, and then give you the actual cut cross-faded sections so that you can recompose what it edited yourself. So you have even more flexibility, again, to your point before about still being able to go back and kind of tweak it after the fact. This in and of itself, I think, is also great for training and illustrating to people how editing should work, right? How to understand how transitions and crossfades work to get the best sound, to get a seamless, pop-free, click-free transition. It's just brilliantly done, man. I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because every time we showcase this, people, they just freak out if they've never seen it. It's magic. It's really magic.
Anecdotally, just very quick. So you had mentioned the question of, well, how is it going to work on this piece of music or that piece of music? I was talking about it at Berklee College of Music a couple of years ago at a
yes, my alma mater.
There. And from the back, this very crusty old, you button up sweater vest kind of guy yells out, "Yeah, but how does it do on a Mahler symphony?" Right. And I was like you. I was like, I have no idea. I never tried that. Let's try it out. So after that words, we pulled something off a CD he had, and we threw it in there, and it was passable. Now, he was far more familiar with Mahler symphonies than I was.
Right.
And so, he was able to say, "Oh, here's where the transition occurred," and stuff. Me as a classically dumb listener, it sounded great. It sounded absolutely great.
Yeah. I mean, case in point, you just got to try this stuff. And I think, and that's the thing. I think everybody's really interested in the concepts around AI and Sensei, but really the brilliance is seeing what it can do. Autoduck is a great example of that. Speech to text. I know we talked a little bit about that, and of course that's coming soon to Premiere. Amazing. Remix, auto-match loudness, all of these kinds of things they're just wonderful and truly game-changing. Okay, so we're going to transition a little bit here. Also, just a couple of quick shouts. We've got more people on the YouTube side. We've even got one of our own. I see Matt Stegner, Maxim Jago, Ronaldo Lawrence. We've got Spanky Valentine TV. How are you doing? Nice to see you. All right, and we've got more Adobe Care folks in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring up one of our esteemed guests. Her name is Isla McTear. She's an editor and storyteller, currently working at Mandy Celine. They're a digital content agency in London. And she put together this brief video for us to showcase some of her awesomeness. So let's quickly take a look at Isla.
There's no handbook to death, but the one part was the easiest for me, was making that phone call, and Lauren took care of it.
Hi, my name is Isla McTear, and I'm a trained editor for British broadcast television, but now work across corporate and social media. In this project titled Life After Teresa, I was tasked with showcasing the true story of a man who lost his wife and the life insurance policy that saved him. Every product has a story to tell, but when you're editing someone's real and honest grief, there is a fine line to balance when it comes to selling a product. For me, I had to figure out how to tell this man's story with sincerity, but never lose sight of the core message, that life insurance is important. So I had 2 interviews. One was from the husband and the other was from the agent who sold him the policy. This was made during and before COVID times, so I had one interview recorded digitally via Zoom and another that was filmed in person. In Premiere, I used both of these interviews and put them in separate timelines, colour-coded the best parts of each, which allowed me to see at a glance exactly which parts of the story I wanted to use, since the husband's interview ran at just about an hour long. It was only upon watching both that I realised how closely their stories matched, and that instead of having the agent talk about life insurance and the husband talk about his wife, I could in fact interweave their interviews, so that together they told the story of the last few years of Teresa's life. There were these beautiful natural cutting points. For example, when the husband called up the agent.
I called all family members, and as well, I even called Lauren.
Hey Lauren, there's been an accident. And I thought, oh my gosh.
And so I was able to create a flow in this story that made it feel natural. Like I'm selling you nothing. I'm just letting this man tell you why this policy was so important to him. In every edit, you want the audience to feel some kind of emotion. But I think the testament to a good edit is when you feel that emotion yourself. I got very emotional when working on this project.
And I said, I love you. And she squeezed me. I said, you love me, girl? And she squeezed my hand. I said, we had the best life ever. She about broke my fingers, And so it was really, that's how I ended my life with her.
Music also plays an important part in this. I love cutting to music. At those big emotional moments, the music swells, and when he tells the story, the piano softens. Of course, all the music is loud, so the audio ducking feature in Premiere was great. Once my dialogue was set, I was able to select my audio, hit the auto ducking feature, generate some keyframes and mildly tweak each one, which is so much faster than me manually going and fiddling with them in the effects panel. I've always loved cutting real life. There is no greater stories that we can tell than those that already exist. I'm really proud of how this edit came together and how I was able to edit it seamlessly with Adobe Premiere.
And we're back, and it is my extreme pleasure to welcome all the way from Scotland, Isla McTear. How are you doing, Isla? Wonderful to see you.
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you so much for joining us. And there's so many questions I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure Durin and Gautham have some as well as the chat. I just wanted to start first because you are, and part of why we have you here is because you are an editor, you are a storyteller, you've been doing this a long time, you've worked in broadcast, but at Mandy Celine, you're producing an enormous amount of content weekly. In fact, I think I read off their site somewhere between 8 to 22 videos deployed between 7 to 10 channels a week. So maybe you can give us a little bit of the backstory and the process of what you do and why Sensei and these kind of AI-driven features really assist in this quick push for content delivery.
Yeah, completely. So I have to do a lot of content delivery a lot of the time. And like Sensei and all that kind of thing, what I'm able to do with it is cut down the amount of time that I have to spend doing the tedious, boring parts of editing, right? So the part that I love the most is kind of doing the creative to it, right? Whereas with, like, for example, I think that video is like auto-dubbing. I work a lot with music, so that really allows me to, so I can get the content to work back. So once I take my headphones out, I can actually hear myself speak. Yeah, so with, and all the other kind of type things in Premiere, I kind of cut down the amount. To give you an example, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, 17 videos to edit in a day. 17 videos, and I was up late for it, usually and some kind of sensitive work, and I wouldn't be able to do it. And I think that when it comes to doing that kind of style of editing, you really are looking for your software to do a lot of it exactly for you, so you can do a lot of the kind of creative stuff, which is good.
Yeah, and I mean, and I imagine, and I mean, and you can speak to this directly, it's probably changed pretty fundamentally, right? How you're producing. I mean, could you envision now I know maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the stuff. I know you talked about doing like sort of reality style television, which again is really super fast turnarounds, right? I mean, things are happening all the time. Yeah. But how is it changed from doing that a few years ago to even now with, sort of like social content and the expectation that things are immediate? Has there been a significant change in the way that you're kind of producing stuff and relying on the technology to help you there?
Yeah, there really is. I think that there's a big difference when it comes to, so television and social are two completely different spheres, and it takes two completely different skill sets to work in them. So I've been trained in TV, and my training in television meant that it was me and another edit producer. I don't know how it works in America, but in Britain, this is how it works. So it's you as the editor, and you've got someone called an edit producer next to you, and they do all of the kind of almost creativity in a sense of writing scripts and telling you like, oh, maybe this cut would look best here, or we'll use this shot, blah, 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 right? Whereas in social, it's you and your client, and that's it. And so you're left with all of this kind of like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? What kind of, what do you want? My client's like, in America, I'm up at 8 a.m., he's in bed. So, I've got no chance of talking to him. So it's up to me to kind of like take the kind of creative role and do that. And as with television, there is a quick turnaround time, but there is obviously a lot of people involved. Whereas with social, yeah, exactly. But with social, there's not a big team. I think the biggest team I've ever worked with was me and maybe 3 other people, and that was it. That was the entirety. Whereas in TV, I was used to working with, we're talking teams of 10, teams of 15, teams of 20, 30 on like big, massive productions. So when you're kind of having to make all of these creative choices by yourself, having the software that kind of works for you and helps you is just really really great. I think that's the only way I can describe it. There's a big difference. There is a big difference, and the kind of quick turnaround times are mad. And I think that the idea for some people of like going 17 videos in a day, that's terrifying. I have no idea how you can turn that around, right? Like
that is terrifying.
How do you do? How can you work that together? My boss will say like that I'm a machine, and I'll just like sit and focus and do it. But it takes time, and it takes time to learn. But there's one thing that I think I learned really early on in my career that I would say to anybody, and that is software is always changing. So learn along with the software, because things that you think, oh, well, it's going to take me let's take the auto ducking that you guys were talking about as an example, right? So I spent ages in the kind of early part of my career manually moving all of these like little keyframes and audio. And then now, okay, well, I can do it automatically.
Right.
Great. How much time does that save me? An unbelievable amount of time. But I know a lot of editors and a lot of people who, regardless of what they do, whether it's graphics or whether it's editing or anything creative, they're kind of you kind of get stuck in your own way.
Yeah.
And you don't want to learn how to do it differently, because you're like, well, I know how to do it. But actually, the software is always improving. So I think that's something that I've kind of had to take to heart, because I have to edit so quickly. So if I didn't kind of keep up with how the software is changing, I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do. So yeah.
I love this comment, and I had a follow up too around this, because and again, you've got a ton of experience really in 2 of the primary worlds for content delivery, broadcast and social. And I wonder if you thought back to your younger self, and talking to someone today who's maybe starting their YouTube channel or starting up a design agency, how much of that knowledge, of that before knowledge, do you think is let me see if I can rephrase this. Obviously, knowing things is wonderful. And of course, AI makes the process of not knowing all the ins and outs in some cases not as necessary. So do you find that you do rely a lot on kind of, again, some of the older workflows that were just ingrained because you've done them so often? Or to your point, because things are constantly evolving, I guess both of those kind of learning paths are kind of moving in parallel, right? You always have the knowledge that's been there, but you also you have to evolve as things around you.
Yeah, you really need to evolve. And that's something that I kind of really took to heart, because, I mean, for my edit career, so I've kind of jumped around different software, right? Because it depends on where you're working. So in television, and specifically like British broadcast TV, so BBC, it's Avid Composer. So like that's what I tended to use. And then when I moved over to social, it was back into Premiere, but I edited Premiere for lots of little kind of projects as well. So Premiere is what I learned in. And learning in Premiere and then moving to other software and then coming back was really interesting, because personally, and not just because I'm on this call, but like I've always preferred Premiere, but like I've always preferred editing.
Checks in the mail, Isla. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But I've always preferred editing in Adobe software. It's just it's easier. I think that when I was younger, and if I was to look back and kind of speak to somebody who was starting a YouTube channel now, yes, I think things that I've learned in the past are useful. I think that it's really good to learn how to rough cut and to learn off of other editors, senior editors who've kind of been in the game for a long time. But even the kind of senior editors, even the bigger guys, can always learn from you too. Because if you've come, I'm kind of envious of people who come in to do this now, and like they've got Premiere and After Effects as it is today. you know, as it looks today with all the kind of
Right.
software with Sensei and how clever it is. Like I'm jealous of people who never experienced the old rotoscope. You know, I'm jealous of
Right.
those
Oh,
people,
yeah.
right?
That's a
Like,
good
I'm so
example. That's a
jealous
great
of it.
example. Right.
Right? I'm so jealous because of the hours that I have spent trying to rotoscope previously. Now it's like the easiest thing in the world. And so it's exciting though. I think that's so exciting about Adobe and technology is that things are always improving and getting better. So yeah, you just always have to learn. You have to open yourself up to learning and be able to kind of teach other people too. Yeah.
You know, and that's another great point. One, teach and share. I think that is just a really fundamental part of just kind of the content creation experience today, right? It's not so long ago, particularly in audio, and I know Durin and Gautham would agree with this 100%. Audio engineers in particular, I'm one, so I can speak this way. Like pre-2000, 2002, no one wanted to share any tricks, right? There wasn't any trick. How did you get that mix? How'd you get that bass sound? How'd you get...
That was your secret sauce.
It was a secret sauce, and you didn't share. And that doesn't fly today, right? It's not going to give you visibility by guarding a process, which is probably antiquated anyway. But even still, there's something very approachable and something probably for your own brand, right? I mean, you are an editor story, that's your brand, is part of that sharing, is part of that communicating how you chose. And maybe you needed Avid for something, or you needed Resolve for something, but you came back to this for this process or for this integration or this thing in After Effects or whatever it is. That's a really important, I love that. And I really appreciate you saying that, honestly, because I think that's something that sometimes gets a little lost, you know? Yeah.
Completely.
So, my friends, we're just about at time, and I can see, amazingly, I mean, this is our community. Everyone in the community is kind of answering all the questions for us. You got a lot of questions here, Isla, about how you got started, and a lot about advice for people getting into rapid social video creation. So maybe we'll take this last one. So if you had words of advice, you've already told people, like, be open to learn, share, you know. And I agree with you, by the way, on your comment about I'm so envious, really, truly, about like my own 8-year-old who's getting to use Premiere and After Effects now. Right. You talk about rotoscope. I mean, and we all know this, but when you look back at even, you know, Creative Suite circa 2003, right? I mean, you know, we actually made video then like that. We did. It was like DV. I mean, it's just so funny to think of so much has changed. But I really do love this concept. But so if you had to say one final thing to people listening and watching who've been inspired by what you're talking about and want to get into the same kind of business, if you had a couple bits of advice outside of the ones you've given, what would you tell a new creator, you know, especially about like getting into the scene? How do you get into the scene? Is there a way to really stand out, or is it just by being consistent and being honest and a decent human?
I think there's one thing that I did that I always tell people whenever they ask me how I got to be an editor, and I kept telling people I wanted to be an editor. That's what I wanted to do. It's all I ever wanted to do. It's all I ever wanted. And that's like, I didn't want to be a director. I didn't want to write. I just wanted to edit. I always knew that's a part of the storytelling process that I wanted to be in and do. And so I told everybody, every single person that would listen. So when I began my career in you guys have the Oscars, we've got the BAFTAs over here. So I began my career at BAFTA. And then I was just an assistant, not editing, nothing. But even then I was like, yeah, but I want to edit. Like, that's what I want to do. And that's what I want to do with my life. And so then I kind of progressed, and wherever I moved to, so I moved from BAFTA into television. And that was just, again, it was admin. And again, I was like, okay, but I want to edit. That's what I want to do. And I didn't study it. So I didn't train. And I think that's something that I see a lot of these days, that you, especially with social, I see this all the time with social, is that what people do train how to edit, but nobody kind of comes from that kind of background in what would you call it, like a university or college.
Right, it's not an expectation anymore.
No, it's not an expectation anymore. And I think that's amazing, because when I was starting, I was like, I don't have any training in this. I just learned myself. Like, I taught myself Premiere, I taught myself After Effects, I had to teach myself Avid later on when I did eventually get that start.
Yeah.
But that's my biggest piece of advice, is never kind of let go of that thing that you want to do. If you want to do it, then just go out there and try and find a way to do it. So if there's a creator that you really, really like and admire, and you like their content and their style, I wouldn't say like jump into their DMs or anything and say, hey, do you want an editor or anything? But like kind of build up your kind of editing skills and never let go of that. Like, that's what I want to do. Keep telling people, and honestly, it will happen for you, because if it happened for me, it'll happen for you. Like, I just kept saying, this is what I want to do, and eventually someone gave me a chance. And you just need that chance, just that one person to turn around and say, yeah, okay, we'll give you a shot. And then you take that and you snowball it from there.
Yeah.
And you never let it go, you know.
I really love this, and honestly, it feels so sincere hearing you say this. And the other thing is, you can see it's also just in that delivery. So it's one thing to like internally you're saying I'm an editor, and then so do things that are edit jobs, do stuff, create, and just be kind of humble about it too, right? Just do it and let people feel that passion, because honestly, it's coming through right now, right? I mean, obviously, it's literally, there are vibes coming through the screen talking about this in the best possible way. And I think that's what, I think there's some fear with people around there, like, I don't know if I can really show that side of myself. No, let it fly, right? Like, let that be who you are. I was the same as a kid, like, you know, music and audio. That's what I wanted to do. I loved the Beatles. I didn't really want to be the Beatles. I wanted to be George Martin and Jeff Emmerich, the producer and engineer.
Yeah.
That's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do engineering. I wanted to do like making the sounds come together. And this is brilliant advice. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So again, Isla, thank you so much. I know it's late in the evening there. Thank you so much for joining.
No
if
problem.
wants to see some of your work, I know they can go to mandyceline.com. Do you have any other Instagram or anything else you'd like to plug? People can check you
I
out.
have Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, which is Isla McTear, ISLA MCTEAR. Yeah, so I have Twitter. I talk about some stuff on there sometimes. And yeah, you can see what I do. Some of it's under NDA, so you know you're not allowed to quite say what you work for. Sometimes with social, you know, people like to not talk about who their editors are. So I exist, but you might not know how.
Somewhere in the background. That's a true editor right there. That's right.
It really is.
in the dark room at 3 a.m. with the coffee and the monitors around you. Yes, indeed.
Watching my life.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Isla, again, thank you so much. And thank you to my esteemed colleagues, Gautham Mysore and Durin Gleaves from Adobe here joining us. Again, gentlemen, thank you. Everyone will be able to watch the replays on Facebook, on YouTube. If you've got more questions, hit us up on Twitter. We are on Twitter. Hit us up at Adobe Care. Leave us a message on YouTube. Find us. I'm at Beetlejace on Twitter. You can find me. This has been wonderful. We will catch you in a month for our now monthly Adobe Video Community virtual meetup. So thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.